I'm planning to go away for a few days.
This is BBC Radio 4. Now, 19 Weeks tells the true story of the writer Emily Steele's decision to abort her pregnancy after her baby was diagnosed with Down syndrome. Eve Myles stars as Emily in this emotional drama.
We park the car and get out, and I say to Chris, "Have you locked it?" And he rolls his eyes and says yes. And then we're at the door. Chris is wearing his blue beanie and his yellow raincoat. He looks like a fisherman. I'm wearing my enormous black harem pants and a cropped leather jacket. I look like MC Hammer. I ring the doorbell. The intercom says,
Hello?
"Hello, it's Emily Steele. I have an 8 o'clock appointment."
Is there someone with you?
She has to ask because of the protesters. I say yes. The fisherman is with me. I used to think when I heard about someone, when I read about them, because it was always someone in the news or in a magazine, and not a real person I knew. If I heard about someone who'd had a late abortion, I'd think, well, that's not very clever, is it? That's not very responsible. A nurse says,
Emily?
"Yes."
Come on through.
And I leave Chris in the waiting room and follow her.
You can get changed in here.
There's a pale blue gown on the radiator.
That should be nice and warm. Put your shoes and your clothes in the blue plastic bag and put your underpants in the brown paper bag so they can put them on you afterwards.
Okay. I'm first in theatre this morning. "Hello," says the doctor. "Hello," say the nurses. They've got my knickers in the brown paper bag. The anaesthetist puts the mask over my face.
Deep breaths now and off to sleep.
It's not working. 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 It's not. It's Writers' Week in Adelaide. It's kids' weekend. We've taken our 2-year-old to the story tent and face painting, and I've told Chris I'm going to take Frank for a walk in the pushchair and try and get him to sleep. And this is half true, because I am doing that, but also I'm secretly going to the chemist. So we get back and... Sorry, he wouldn't go to sleep. And Chris rocks him in his arms while I take my bag from the chemist off to the Portaloos. I climb into the Portaloo and lock the door and get the box out of the bag and the stick out of the box, crouch over the Portaloo toilet. And there I am waiting 3 minutes in the Portaloo with the smell and the queue outside. And then the first line turns pink, which means it's working, and then the second line turns pink, which means... If I'm honest, my first thought is, oh God, what have we done? Because I thought, because I'm 38, we'd better start trying again, because it might take a year. But it's happening. And I'm happy about it, really, and Chris is quietly delighted. How can I not be happy when so many people around me are having miscarriages and fertility treatment? But being honest, it's not quite the same amazing miracle as it was the first time, because I'm already tired. And this time I know what I'm in for. I have morning sickness upside down. When I wake in the morning, that's the best I'm going to feel all day. I vomit so much I burst the blood vessels in my face. I've got tiny red dots from my eyes down to my chest. Every morning before he goes to work, Chris says, Frank, will you look after Mummy, because Mummy isn't very well? Sometimes when I'm crouched over the toilet bowl puking, Frank strokes my back and says,
Meow, meow, I'm a cat.
Well, mostly he says,
You okay, Mummy? Are you okay?
And I say, yes, Frank. I'm okay. I'm okay. Because this isn't a mummy he's seen before. This mummy that can barely get up off the couch except to go and chuck her guts up. I feel undone. I can't work. I can't write. I have to cancel all my meetings. I can't get to rehearsals. I miss another deadline for a script. Chris races home early from work most days and looks after Frank and looks after me. I go to the doctor and get all the drugs, but none of them work. At 6 weeks, I tell one of my sisters by email because she lives on the other side of the world. And she says, "Hey, Mrs. Fertile, lol." At 8 weeks, I phone my mum. "Oh, when I come to visit, I won't just have Frank to cuddle now. I'll have another one as well." I email my dad. He says, "It's great news, Em." I text my other sister. She says, "If you need a babysitter, just ask." She lives on the other side of the world too. They all do. Sometimes, looking at my own dead eyes in the mirror, I think there are women who get so sick they have abortions. Some days I am so tired. I am so sick of being sick that I think maybe this one won't stick. The 12-week scan. Frank is at childcare. Chris takes the afternoon off work. I feel sick, but I'm smiling because we're going to see our baby for the first time. Chris holds my hand, and there it is. There's the heartbeat. There's the head.
The baby's in the wrong position. I can't see the back of the neck.
She needs to see the back of the neck so she can measure the nuchal translucency.
Cough. And again.
The baby bounces, but it doesn't turn.
Oh, our son did this. He was in the wrong position at the 20-week scan. It took an hour.
Now, we don't have that kind of time. If I can't get it today, you'll have to come back.
She doesn't get it. I have to go back. Chris can't come that day. He's away with work, and I have to bring Frank with me. I explain it to him. I was going to wait till later, but we're at 12 weeks, so it's safe now, right? I tell him about the baby, Mummy's tummy. I tell him it's a bit like the kangaroo we saw, with a baby kangaroo in its pouch. Yes, we're going to see the baby on the computer today, Frank. He's going to love it. He doesn't love it. I have to give him my phone so he can watch Peppa Pig, while the sonographer this time gets the measurement. She can't find the bladder.
Another Peppa Pig, Frank?
She's looking for something else.
Another Peppa Pig?
Have you had your bloods done yet?
I'm getting them done tomorrow. Can you let me have a picture?
I can put some footage on a USB stick.
Oh, I didn't bring one.
I can give you one.
And I'm surprised she offers because she's been so humorless. Thanks. I need to go before I throw up.
Get your bloods done.
Okay. I show my mum the video over Skype. "Oh," says my mum. "Hello, baby. Oh, we love you." The next day I'm at the hospital. First antenatal appointment. I see the midwife and fill in the forms about support networks. No, we don't have any family here to help. And mental health, yes. I've been depressed in the past, yes. I had some counselling and all the rest. And then I go in and get my bloods done. When I was pregnant with Frank, the midwife talked to me and Chris about first trimester screening and whether we wanted to have it.
It combines the nuchal translucency measurements with the levels of certain hormones in your blood and your age.
At that point, I was 35.
You get a risk assessment for neural tube defects, trisomy 18 and trisomy 21. Now, trisomy 18 is Edwards syndrome, trisomy 21 is Down syndrome.
She asked if we know what we would do if we had a positive diagnosis for any of them. We've already talked about it. We think we would terminate. Let me tell you about Uncle Richard. Rich was funny. He liked to paint. He liked soldiers and comics. Oh, and Doctor Who. Sometimes he said to me, "Get in the oven." Sometimes he said to me, "Take your clothes off." I loved Rich. Rich had something called Friedreich's ataxia. It's genetic. It causes progressive damage to your nervous system. When he was younger, Rich could walk. He needed to grab onto things a lot, but he could walk. As he got older, he needed a wheelchair sometimes, and my dad would run with him along the cliff tops till Rich screamed, "Mom, Mom!" And my nan would just shout, "Stop it!" Eventually, Rich needed his wheelchair all the time. He needed a hoist to get him in and out of bed. He had to wear adult nappies. He got diabetes. He went deaf. Friedreich's doesn't normally cause intellectual disabilities, but in Richard's case it did. Oh, Or something else did. I don't know. He was just rich. Rich never had a job, never left home, never had a girlfriend. He'd have loved a girlfriend. He had to make do with Xena, warrior princess. But I think he was happy with his paints and his comics and the TV and a cup of tea. As long as his mum was there. His mum, my nan, looked after Rich for more than 50 years. There were carers who came in to help sometimes, but she got into her 70s and couldn't lift him anymore. But mostly she looked after him herself. She used to worry as she got older that she might die before he did, because then where would he go? And then he died first, in hospital at night. And she couldn't forgive herself for not being there when he went. She was extraordinary, my nan. This strong, smart, witty woman who somehow coped with everything. She was devoted to Rich. But she would talk to me after he died about the things she might have done. She would have liked to have gone to university. She would have liked to write. She would have liked to travel. Maybe she could still do those things. And she made plans to go and visit her friend in Canada. I would go with her on the plane, but she was afraid to fly. She never got to Canada. She got dementia instead. And that strong, smart, witty woman disappeared. When I got pregnant with Frank, Chris and I tested to make sure we weren't carriers for Friedrich's. 13 weeks. I phoned the hospital for my screening results. The midwife says,
I've got the blood results, but not the ultrasound.
But the ultrasound should have been sent a week ago.
Call back again tomorrow.
I call back the next morning, get a different midwife.
Oh, I haven't got them. Try again in the afternoon.
I call again. Someone else answers the phone, drops it.
Are you still there? The other midwife has got your results. She'll want to talk to you herself.
She comes on the line.
Yes, they came through. I don't have them in front of me, but your baby's at increased risk for Down syndrome. I can't tell you the exact number because I'm not looking at it now, but it's 1 in 150 or 160. Maternal fetal medicine will call you today or tomorrow.
I put down the phone and cry. Just out of shock, I think. Hello?
I just thought I should call you back. It doesn't mean your baby has Down syndrome. It means if you lined up 150 babies with these results, one of them would have Down syndrome.
Yes, I understand that. I hang up and cry anyway. I want to talk to Chris, but he's in a meeting in Sydney, and I don't want to make him think about it all the way back home on the plane. So I just lie on the sofa feeling sick until it's time to go and get Frank from childcare, and then Chris comes home and puts him to bed. When Frank's asleep, we sit for a while and talk. And then I'm like, so I got the screening results. And I try to be calm about it because it's only 1 in 150, but I cry anyway. I say, I don't want that life for any of us. And Chris says, no. Right before I get pregnant, I'm working with a theatre company. Lots of the performers have Down syndrome. I tell Chris about this young guy and how poetic he is, and that young woman and how she makes me laugh. I tell him, if we had a child like that, I think we'd be okay. Maternal fetal medicine don't call in the morning. They don't call, they don't call, they don't call. She's so sorry it's been that kind of day. She can talk me through my results.
So, nuchal translucency measurement in normal range. Pat A, normal range, but under 1. They like it to be higher than 1. Beta HCG, bit high, but it's subtle. No increased risk for trisomy 18. Risk of Down syndrome's 1 in 152, which is exactly the same as the risk for your age.
So what do we do?
How far along are you?
13 and a half weeks?
Okay, so you're too far along for CBS. You could have NIPT now. It's a blood test which looks for fetal DNA in your blood. It's 99% accurate, but it's not covered by Medicare, and it's $450. Takes 5 to 10 working days for results, and if it's positive, it's probably right, but it could be something else, and we'd need to confirm with an amniocentesis. Now, you can have amnio from 15 weeks. The full chromosome count takes 7 to 10 days, but you can get fast-track preliminary results for $250, or you can do nothing. You can just wait. Do the normal 20-week scan.
I think I want the amnio. I think if I get the $450 blood test, I'm not going to trust it, and I'm still going to want the amnio. So she books me in at 15 weeks, I say. I know the risk of miscarriage after an amnio is about 1 in 200, but what is it in that particular hospital?
I think it's about 1 in 500.
That's much better, that's much better. Oh, that's much better. When I was pregnant with Frank, from about 14 weeks, when I'd totally stopped feeling sick, I rubbed almond oil into my belly every day to try and prevent stretch marks, and because it was lovely. This time I can't bring myself to do it. At 15 weeks we go in for the amnio. The doctor explains the procedure and she says,
Most of the time the hole we make with the needle will close within a few hours, but there's a chance that when we puncture the amniotic sac, the fluid might leak out.
And there's a chance that the hole won't leak, but it won't close and I could get an infection, and the risk of miscarriage isn't 1 in 500 like the nurse said on the phone. It's more like 1 in 300, and...
You should go and have a coffee first and talk about it. Do you have any other questions before you go?
Do you have any questions, Chris? Chris doesn't have any questions. I have a question. How reliable is the blood test? The NIPT?
It's very reliable.
If you were in our position, what would you do? She pauses. I'm not sure she's supposed to tell us this sort of thing, but...
I do the amnio because I'm the sort of person who needs to know. 100%.
Am I that sort of person? What sort of person am I? We're in the queue in the cafe and I say to Chris, what do you want to do? And he says, if it was me... Well, it is you, Chris. If it was just me, he says, I do the blood test first. And I'm relieved when he says that. And we decide... We're not going to do the amnio today. We go over the road to a private clinic and they take out $450 and the nurse takes my blood and that's it. Frank says...
There's a baby kangaroo in your pouch.
Yes, Frank. There is.
It's going to come out playing with me and go boing, boing, boing.
16 weeks. I call the hospital. Have they got the test results yet? No.
If they come through by the end of Friday, we'll call.
They don't call. 17 weeks.
I'm sorry. It's come back no result, which means they couldn't get enough fetal DNA from your blood. You can have it done again and wait another 10 days, or we can get you in for an amnio tomorrow.
It sounds like the test just messed up, doesn't it? But I've been reading. I'm always reading. And I've read that if you're already at an increased risk and you get no result, then your chance of a positive diagnosis gets much, much higher. Because they can't get the fetal DNA, because the placenta isn't working as it should. Which might also be why I'm still so sick. So when Chris says, oh, that's annoying, you should have it done again then, right? I say, no, I want the amnio now. We're in the waiting room of the ultrasound department at the hospital. We've been here an hour. We're going goggle-eyed looking at daytime TV. Up next, an interview with an actress who has Down syndrome. She says people look at her and see a disability, but what's really important is a person's heart.
Emily?
Yes. The sonographer puts the wand on my belly.
There's Bubba. There's the cord.
The doctor says.
Don't look at the needle. Watch Bubs on screen.
I hope Chris doesn't faint.
Little pinch.
It's not so bad going in. It feels like pressure, but it doesn't hurt. But then I'm crying. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to keep still and breathe and not cry. And she pulls the needle out, and that's when it hurts. And they check the baby's heartbeat, and they clean me up and stick on a plaster, and I'm done.
Are you getting the fast-track results?
Yeah.
They'll be ready within 48 hours. We'll have to confirm them with the full chromosome count, and that will take about a week. But at least you'll have preliminary results in a couple of days.
I feel crampy in the car on the way home, but not much. And I tell Chris, I think we're fine. I'm sat at the table the next day when the phone rings. No caller ID, which means it's probably the hospital. It's probably the fast track results. It's probably all fine, and after this phone call, we can finally relax. Hello?
Hello, Emily?
Yes. It's the doctor from maternal fetal medicine.
Have you got a few minutes to talk?
And that's when I know.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Is your partner there with you?
Yes.
Does he have any questions?
Chris, he doesn't have any questions. She says we'll have to wait a week for the full results before we do anything else. I hang up. And then I cry. I drop my head onto the dining table and I bawl. I cry like I never cry. I cry my guts out. I cry till the tabletop is slick. And Chris sits and holds my hand the whole time. And then I pause, I come up for air. And that's when he cries. Sobs. Like I've never seen him. And we stumble over to the sofa and just carry on. And then, because I can't be completely sure that I know what he's feeling or he knows what I'm feeling, I say, I don't want to have it. And he says, no, I don't either. Let's get this straight. I don't actually think that a baby with Down syndrome, that a person with Down syndrome has less inherent value than one without. But my life has value too. I am not just a vessel. I am not just a mother. I would throw myself in front of a bus for Frank, but sometimes I don't want to play with blocks or pretend to be a dog or tell the same story again and again and again. I want to work. I like my work. I've liked it for a long time. It's become who I am. If I couldn't do it, I think I would have lost myself. And I know, as hard as it is for me to find time to work now, it'll be so much harder if I have this baby. As hard as it is to find space in my head to write anything, as hard as it is to be the one that sorts out childcare and doctor's appointments and haircuts and kinder gym. And Chris is bloody brilliant, but he just doesn't think about this stuff. And it would be so much harder if I was also sorting out more doctor's appointments and heart surgery and speech therapists and the system, and there's no one here to help me. I know a lot of people with Down syndrome live good, happy lives, but if this one were to die in childhood because of heart problems or leukemia, I think that would destroy me. And if it had an IQ of 50, I don't know how I'd deal with that. And if it did really well and then got Alzheimer's at 40, I would be 80 years old. Maybe if I was a real mother, I would sacrifice everything. But I'm not that person. With perfect clarity. I know who I'm not. I'm not a hero. I'm not selfless. I don't even know if I'm good. I look up the procedure for the termination. I find something that says that in South Australia you can have a surgical abortion up to 22 weeks. I call the hospital to check exactly how they do it. If I know what's going to happen, I can get my head around it. The midwife says since I'm past 15 weeks, they do it by induction of labour. On the labour ward.
It sounds horrific, doesn't it? But most women say it's not as bad as they thought it would be. And they get to meet their baby and hold it and name it if they want to.
On the labour ward.
In a room at the end of the labour ward.
My son was born on that labour ward.
You can have all the drugs you want, and there'll be a social worker there.
Okay. Okay.
I hang up and cry, and then I get it together enough to look at the website where it said they do it under general anaesthetic. And I call the number for the clinic that's listed and try to explain it to the woman on the phone without falling apart. And she says yes. They can do it under a general. And she books me in for a big counselling session the Friday after we get the full results. And she tells me the termination, if we want to go ahead with it, will be the following Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't know anyone who's been through this. I mean, I might know someone, but I don't know I know them. There are groups online for people who've had terminations for medical reasons, but when I read their posts, they all seem to feel things in a particular way, and it isn't quite the same as how I feel, so I don't want to post anything. I am crazy angry. I snap at Chris because he says he'll get me a glass of water and he forgets. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just forget it! It doesn't matter! Chris isn't the problem. The kicking is the problem. The waiting and the kicking. I haven't told Chris about the kicking. I don't want him to hurt any more than he already does. So I'm trying not to tell him about the kicking. Instead, I am screaming at him. I haven't got through 3 days yet. There are 12 more to go before it's over, and it keeps kicking me tiny little jabs and flutters over and over and over. And it does it at night when I'm trying to sleep. It's doing it now while I'm lying on the sofa feeling sick. Stop it, I say to it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I raise my hand and I hit it. I hit it. I have been afraid to tell you that. I have been afraid to tell you all of it, but I am most afraid to tell you that. That's the moment I would most like to hide from you because I'm ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of the rest of it, but I'm ashamed of that. I need to tell Chris then. And I go and I find him raking leaves with Frank in the garden, and I know it's going to scare Frank, and it does when I sink to my knees and cry and scream. I'm so angry. I am so angry with it. It's made me so sick, and it's all for nothing, and it keeps kicking me, and I just want it gone. Those few days, that weekend, is the closest I've ever come to losing my mind. I understand now why a woman would sit in a scalding hot bath, throw herself down the stairs, try to do it herself with a knitting needle. I email my friends, all my closest friends who have known me forever and live on the other side of the world. Some of them don't even know I'm pregnant. So the email has to say, I am, and this has happened, and soon I won't be. And I don't know where you stand on these things because this particular eventuality has never actually come up in conversation, but I need you now. The first person to reply is the one who has yearned to have kids since we were 21. She's had so many rounds of IVF, it's failed every time, and I am so afraid she will be angry with me for this. And she sends me buckets of love. And I cry. I am really nervous about phoning my mum, partly because she's an evangelical Christian. When I was a teenager, she and my stepfather had anti-abortion leaflets in their bedroom with pictures and stories about how unborn babies could feel terrible pain and how doctors would put the aborted ones still alive in the bin. But she's mellowed, my mum, in the last few years. And really, I'm worried that I'm going to make her sad. Hello, Mum, it's Em. Have you got a minute? She doesn't cry. She's very supportive. She doesn't hit one wrong note. till she says, "And we'll always love this baby." No, Mum. I just don't feel like that. It's made me so sick. I don't say. If I promise that, it means I won't ever get over this, and I need to get over it. She says she understands. I tell her thank you. I say, "You know, Mum, there was a time when you wouldn't have been so understanding." She says, "It's different when it's your daughter." And when I phone my dad, he cries. He's trying to hide it, but I can hear. And that makes me cry too. "I'm sorry I've upset you, Dad." "I'm all right," he says. He talks about Rich and Nana. He says to me, "Hold your head up." Am I terribly serious? Not very demonstrative, Dad says. "Give Chris a hug for me." When I hug Chris and say it's from my dad, Chris cries too. 18 weeks. I'm still sick. We go into the hospital to talk to the doctor. She's got the full chromosome count. There's a tiny, tiny chance that the full results will be different from the fast track results. But I don't think they will be. Please don't tell us the sex.
I won't. The results confirm trisomy 21.
Okay.
We can't tell you at this stage how much your baby might be affected, intellectually or physically. We just can't know.
We go into the abortion clinic for our counselling session. The social worker gives us tea, asks if we need any help making our decision. No, we've already made it. She takes us through everything then. How it takes 2 days when you're this far along. How I'll be asleep for each surgery. How on the first day.
So they'll insert these little dilators,
She shows us one.
into your cervix, and they slowly expand and open it up.
How they also
And some people find this part upsetting.
give the baby an injection that will stop its heart. I think it's kind to do it like that. That's all it's ever known is the warm and the dark. And this way it ends where it began.
And when you're recovered from the anaesthetic,
She says,
you go home. We give you instructions and medicines to take. And there's a very small chance you might spontaneously miscarry in the night. And in the morning, you take your first dose of misoprostol, which softens and opens the cervix. And then you come straight in. We'll give you more misoprostol. And it'll take a few hours because we want your body to do most of the work. And then about 11:30, you'll get into theatre again and have the second procedure. And that's when the abortion will be done. You'll sit and wait for a couple of hours till the anaesthetic wears off, and then you can go home. You'll need Chris to drive you because you can't drive for 24 hours.
She says,
I should warn you, when the pregnancy has reached this stage, some women find their milk comes in.
okay.
Do you have any questions?
Chris, do you have any questions? Chris never has questions. Chris has a question. Chris says, is there anything special I need to do to look after her? On the way home, we stop at Krispy Kreme for donuts to cheer me up. As we're leaving, a group of older men with Down syndrome come in with their carers. They want donuts too. 19 weeks. I haven't known how to explain it to Frank. Should we stick with talking about it like it's a kangaroo, or should we explain it's a baby? The social worker said to us, just don't tell him it's been sick. Then he'll be afraid that if you're sick, you might die too. So Chris goes out and buys a toy kangaroo. Frank, we need to talk to you about something. I sit on the floor. Chris sits on the floor. Frank looks very serious. You know the baby kangaroo in Mummy's pouch? Well, the baby kangaroo has to go away, which means it won't be able to come out and play with you. And that's why Mummy has been sad, because I'm going to miss the baby kangaroo. But it sent you something to play with. And Chris pulls out the toy out of the bag. Frank is delighted. Delighted. Plays with it. Makes it bounce. I'm not sure he's heard what I said until he stops playing, looks at the toy, says quietly to himself,
Wheelwoo sent it to me. because it had to go away. It's not come out to play with me.
Do you want to say goodbye to the Roo? Do you want to give it a kiss and a cuddle?
No.
He does that the next night, spontaneously comes over and says,
Bye-bye, Roo.
19 weeks, 2 days. They've put my knickers back on. The nurse helps me up and walks me through to where Chris is waiting. When I feel steady enough, I take my blue plastic bag and go and get dressed. The nurse gives me a pack with all the pills to take. I just take one sleeping pill, even though they gave me 2, because I think I'll be able to sleep tonight. Because it isn't moving anymore. And I find that I am glad to have this night to spend with it. I talk to it inside my head, in a way I never have. I say, sorry, little thing. And I say goodbye. 19 weeks, 3 days. We get up at 6, wake up Frank, dress him, feed him. Just before we leave the house, I take the first misoprostol. And now we need to get there before it really kicks in. Drop Frank at childcare, get to the clinic by 7:45. Any protesters? Not today. Buzz the door.
Emily Steele. Yes, he's with me.
Another smiley nurse. Gown warming on the radiator again, clothes in this bag. Leave my knickers on for now. They give me anti-nausea stuff, a couple of painkillers, and another dose of misoprostol. They take me to sit with Chris and wait for the drugs to work, for the pain to get worse. I shiver like crazy when the misoprostol hits, and a nurse brings me an extra blanket and wraps it around me. By 11:30, when they come to take me through, I am so ready for this. I take my knickers off, put them in the paper bag, lie down on the trolley to wait for the anaesthetist. I'm up next. The anaesthetist comes in and then... No. I've been bumped. Because there's another woman who's in a lot of pain. I don't mean to be funny, but I'm in quite a lot of pain myself. I tell myself I can handle it. And the nurse is asking if I'm okay because she can give me something if I want. And I'm saying, how long?
5 minutes.
I can handle 5 minutes. I can handle 5 minutes. And then I can't handle 5 minutes. And she pushes a syringe of something into the IV and, oh God, that's better. And they wheel me into theatre. And the doctor says, hello. And the mask is over my face and I just want to be out. I just want to be gone. Open my eyes. And there's the social worker on one side of me and a nurse on the other, and they smile at me. And it's done. And all I can feel is relief. Apparently, I helped the nurses put my knickers back on. Chris looks very glad to see me. And they bring us cups of tea and biscuits and crackers and cheese. I demolish every bit of it. And because I'm so bloody contrary, that evening after we've put Frank to bed, we're sitting on the sofa and I say to Chris, I miss my little passenger. Almost immediately, I feel physically better than I have in months. It's astonishing just not to feel sick all the time. I feel fine. I'm bleeding a bit, but I'm fine. What do you do the day after an abortion? We go and test drive a car. It's tiny and fun. It's been a long time since we've had fun. We laugh going over the bumps in the road and we say, wee, going around the corners. I realise after I've driven it that I'm still within 24 hours of the anaesthetic and shouldn't be driving at all. I wonder if I should have found out the sex. I wonder if I owed it to the would-have-been baby. I wonder if I would be a better person if I'd wanted to go through the labour. But I think that would have been like making myself hurt on purpose. So I have a meeting with the director. It's the first one I've had since the abortion. And she asks how I've been. I can't lie to her, so I tell her. And she says she can't imagine, and then we just go on. I run into someone one day while I'm out, and she says, "How are you?" And I say, "Well," and I tell her. And she tells me she just had a pregnancy scare, and she says she knew she would have had an abortion because she couldn't manage another child. My mum sends me relentlessly upbeat text messages. She means well, but I ask her to stop because I have to be allowed to feel sad. Don't really know how I'm supposed to feel. I'm surprisingly okay. I wonder if I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I have no patience at all. I'm shouting at Frank for everything and anything. I tell Chris, "Oh, he's being so manipulative." And Chris says, I don't think so. I think he's just being too. I start writing again. Someone says to me,
"It's not like you said, it's just not the right time."
Someone says,
But if you hadn't been so sick, you might have made a different choice.
I go to see the play by the performers with Down syndrome. It's good. Afterwards, the woman who runs the company catches me. Emily, I hear you're expecting." I don't know how she'll react when I tell her, but she puts her arms around me and gives me a big, big hug. One weekend, we look after my friend's kids for a few hours, and I see how happy Chris looks when he's holding their 8-week-old baby. When I turn sideways in the mirror, I still look kind of pregnant. Chris and I sit up late one night, and I tell him I'm sad. Of course I'm sad. But I'm not sorry we made the choice we did. And I'm playing in the street with Frank one afternoon, and I turn round and there's someone I know, sort of. And I know she's got a daughter with Down syndrome. And I know she knows I had an abortion. I say hi. She looks me right in the face and then turns and walks away. It's Saturday, and I sleep in, and Chris feeds Frank breakfast. When I come into the living room, Frank is playing with Chris's turntables, putting the needles on the records, lifting them off again. Now and then we hear a little scratch, and Chris winces and tells Frank to be careful, but he doesn't stop him. And I'm standing behind my not quite 3-year-old DJ, spooning muesli into my mouth and loving Chris for letting Frank do this. And I remember what day it is. 40 weeks. Today's my due date. And I wonder, of course I wonder, if it all would have been all right. But wondering isn't the same as regret. And I know how certain that past me was about how she felt and what she wanted. And I have to trust her and believe her and be grateful to her because she made this me possible. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Chris and I open a bottle of wine in the evening. I say, "It would have been my due date today." "I know," he says. I didn't want to mention it in case he didn't want to think about it, but then I thought, you might not want to mention it in case I didn't want to think about it. Something like that, he says.
In 19 Weeks by Emily Steele, Emily was played by Eve Myles, the doctor by Vanessa Hier, the social worker by Mafrida Hayes, the sonographer by Carly Hughes, and Frank was played by Milo Robinson. 19 Weeks was a BBC Cymru Wales production, directed by Helen Perry.
And for information about organisations offering help or support in pregnancy, go to bbc.co.uk/actionline.
BBC News at 3.